On a humid Tuesday morning in downtown Los Angeles, the kind of day when the press gathers like vultures outside the courthouse, the entertainment world was rattled by news that seemed almost surreal. Cardi B, the Grammy-winning rapper and cultural phenomenon whose rise from the Bronx to superstardom has been a story of grit, resilience, and unapologetic authenticity, emerged from a 3-year legal battle with a resounding victory. A federal court awarded her $24 million in damages against a former nightclub security guard accused of assault, harassment, and a reckless disregard for her safety. The judgment wasn't just about money. It was about power, respect, and the boundaries celebrities draw when their personal safety collides with those tasked with protecting public order. The case raised uncomfortable questions. How much power do security guards wield in nightlife environments where alcohol, money, and egos collide? What responsibility do celebrities bear in ensuring their entourages do not escalate confrontations? And what message does such a staggering financial penalty send to the industry? As reporters scrambled to file their stories, legal experts to weigh in on television panels, and fans flooded social media with reactions ranging from jubilation to disbelief, one thing was clear: Cardi B had once again seized the spotlight, not through music this time, but through the American legal system. For her, the victory was personal. This wasn't about the fame. This wasn't about money. This was about dignity, she told reporters on the courthouse steps, her voice steady but laced with emotion. Wearing a tailored white suit that contrasted sharply with the gray stone of the courthouse, she spoke not only as a global icon but as a woman reclaiming control after an incident that had haunted her for years. The story that unfolded in court was one of late-night chaos, bruised reputations, and legal maneuvering worthy of a Hollywood script. Yet beneath the spectacle lay a very human narrative, a woman fighting to be respected in spaces where respect is too often denied, even to the most powerful among us. When the trial officially began in March 2024, the Los Angeles County Superior Court became the epicenter of a media frenzy. News vans lined the street, paparazzi jostled for photographs, and legal pundits set up outside the courthouse, broadcasting live commentary. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation. The case had become more than Cardi B versus Marcus Dillon. It was framed as a clash between celebrity power and working-class labor, dignity and dismissal, respect and disrespect. The courtroom itself became a theater of contrasts. Cardi B, flanked by her husband Offset and her attorney Vanessa Ortiz, exuded confidence. She wore understated designer outfits, far from her usual flamboyant stage attire, signaling that she wanted the focus squarely on justice, not spectacle. Dillon, by contrast, sat rigidly at the defense table in cheap suits that seemed slightly too large, a man caught between defiance and fatigue. His attorney, Richard Callahan, a grizzled defense lawyer. With decades of experience representing nightclub staff and corporations, framed the narrative as David versus Goliath. Only this time, David was the bouncer, and Goliath was the rap superstar. Selecting a jury for a case involving a world-famous celebrity was no small feat. After days of voir dire, 12 individuals were seated, a mix of teachers, small business owners, retirees, and young professionals. Notably, 2 jurors admitted to being casual fans of Cardi B's music but swore under oath that they could remain impartial. "It was one of the most scrutinized jury selections I've ever seen," said a court reporter. Both sides knew the jury's perception of fame and power would be critical. The trial's defining moment came early when Cardi B herself took the witness stand. The courtroom hushed as she adjusted the microphone, her nails, shorter than usual, tapping lightly against the wood. Speaking in a calm but resolute tone, she recounted the events of August 14, 2021. She described the excitement of celebrating her friend's birthday, the chaos outside the nightclub, and the moment Dylan's hand made contact with her shoulder. "I remember feeling small," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I've worked my whole life to stand tall, to not let people treat me like I'm nothing. And then, in that moment, with cameras flashing and people screaming my name, I felt powerless. I was embarrassed, I was hurt, and I was scared." Her testimony lasted nearly 4 hours, punctuated by breaks as Ortiz guided her through the sequence of events. Jurors leaned forward, visibly engaged. Some scribbled notes furiously. One juror, later interviewed anonymously, recalled, "You could tell she wasn't acting. She was raw. It was like she took off the armor she wears in public and let us see the person behind it." When it was Callahan's turn to cross-examine, the mood shifted. He attempted to paint Cardi as volatile, prone to overreacting, and accustomed to using her fame as leverage. He asked whether her entourage had been drinking heavily, whether she had shouted obscenities at Dylan first, and whether she was exaggerating the push for financial gain. "Ms. Belcalis Almanzar," he said, using her legal name, "isn't it true that you often use confrontation as part of your brand? Isn't it true that you've thrived on drama and controversy?" Cardi's response was swift and piercing. "Drama and music is one thing. Being pushed by a grown man when I did nothing wrong is another. Don't confuse entertainment with disrespect." Her retort drew murmurs in the gallery, quickly silenced by the judge's gavel. The exchange highlighted the defense's uphill battle. Every attempt to discredit Cardi risked making Dylan look more callous. Several witnesses were called, each adding layers to the narrative. Club patrons. A young woman testified that she saw Dylan push Cardi's friend hard enough to make her stumble. Another patron recalled seeing Dylan place his hand on Cardi's shoulder in what looked aggressive, not protective. Medical experts. Cardi's physician presented medical records confirming she sustained a shoulder sprain. Though minor, the doctor explained that such an injury could cause significant pain and limit mobility for weeks. Character witnesses. Ortiz called 2 former Velour employees who testified that Dylan had a reputation for being overly aggressive. One recalled, "He liked throwing his weight around. If you were famous, he either kissed up or pushed back. There was no in between." Security experts. Perhaps the most damaging testimony came from a retired LAPD officer specializing in nightclub security, who explained that Dylan's physical contact with Cardi violated standard protocols. A security guard is there to de-escalate, not escalate. Placing hands on a patron, especially a high-profile guest, without immediate danger present is unacceptable. Callahan countered with his own witnesses. Several of Dylan's former colleagues described him as professional and fair. They insisted the environment outside Velour that night was chaotic and that Dylan acted within reason. "He wasn't targeting her," one guard testified. "He was trying to control a dangerous crowd." Dylan himself eventually took the stand. His demeanor oscillated between confident and combative. He admitted to touching Cardi's shoulder but insisted it was gentle and intended to guide her to safety. "I didn't push her," he maintained. "I was trying to clear the way. She overreacted." Under Ortiz's cross-examination, however, cracks appeared. She confronted Dillon with surveillance footage showing him making the gesture more forcefully than he admitted. She highlighted inconsistencies between his deposition and trial testimony. At one point, when asked why multiple patrons described his behavior as aggressive, Dillon snapped, "Because they're all starstruck. They just want to be on Cardi's side." That outburst drew gasps in the courtroom. "It was a turning point," recalled one journalist. "He came across not as a protector but as someone resentful of her fame. It hurt his credibility." Outside the courtroom, the trial played out in real time across social media. Hashtags like #CardiInCourt and #JusticeForCardi trended on Twitter. Clips of her testimony went viral on TikTok, where fans praised her vulnerability. Talk shows debated whether celebrities should be awarded such large damages. "It's bigger than Cardi," one commentator argued on CNN. "This is about workplace accountability, about whether people in power, whether famous or not, can expect basic respect." Not everyone was sympathetic. Some critics argued the case was overblown. A conservative columnist dismissed it as celebrity privilege run amok, while others questioned why Cardi pursued damages rather than moving on. But within the courtroom, those narratives mattered little. The jury's focus remained on the facts, the footage, and the credibility of the witnesses. Closing arguments. By the time closing arguments arrived in late April, the case had become a national spectacle. Ortiz, in her final appeal to the jury, emphasized dignity and accountability. "This case is not about celebrity. It's about humanity. Cardi B deserves the same respect any woman deserves when she walks into a public space. Marcus Dillon crossed the line, and now he must be held accountable." Callahan, for the defense, warned against what he called financial annihilation of his client. "A $24 million demand is absurd. It will destroy a man's life for what amounts to a misunderstanding in a crowded nightclub. Do not let celebrity status cloud your judgment." The jury listened intently, their faces inscrutable. After nearly 3 weeks of testimony, hundreds of pages of exhibits, and hours of legal arguments, the case was finally in their hands. On the morning of the 9th of March 2025, the jury filed back into the courtroom after nearly 2 days of deliberation. Reporters, fans, and attorneys leaned forward in collective anticipation. Cardi B sat upright, hands clasped tightly on the table before her. Dillon, looking worn and pale, avoided her gaze. The foreperson rose and delivered the words that would reverberate far beyond the courthouse. "We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Belcalis Almanzar, known professionally as Cardi B, and award damages in the amount of $24 million. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Cardi closed her eyes, exhaled, and briefly clasped Ortiz's hand. Dillon slumped in his chair, shaking his head. The judge banged the gavel for silence, but the moment had already spilled into history. A security guard ordered to pay a superstar $24 million, one of the largest personal injury awards of its kind in the entertainment sector. The award was divided into $4 million in compensatory damages for medical costs, therapy, and lost work opportunities, and a staggering $20 million in punitive damages, meant to send a message that aggressive misconduct in professional roles would not be tolerated. "This is about deterrence," explained one legal scholar on a live CNN broadcast. "The jury wanted to make sure this never happens again, not to Cardi, not to anyone." When the court adjourned, Cardi B stepped outside to face the throng of cameras. "This is a win for women, for artists, and for anyone who has ever been disrespected in a place where they should feel safe," she declared. Her words were met with cheers from fans who had camped outside for days, holding signs that read "Justice for Cardi and respect Black women." Dylan left through a side exit, escorted by his legal team, offering no comment. His attorney later confirmed they planned to appeal, but few legal analysts gave the appeal much chance. The evidence had been overwhelming, the verdict decisive. Public media reaction: a nation watches. Within hours, the ruling dominated headlines worldwide. Entertainment outlets ran splashy front-page spreads. "Cardi crushes in court." Blared TMZ. The New York Times offered a more sober analysis. Cardi B's $24 million verdict signals new era of accountability in nightlife security. Across the Atlantic, The Guardian called it a cultural reckoning disguised as a celebrity trial. Fans' perspective. On social media, Cardi's fans, famously vocal and loyal, known as the Bardi Gang, erupted in celebration. Hashtags like #CardiWins and number 24 million message trended for days. Memes proliferated. Edited images of Cardi B holding a judge's gavel, gifs of her victory strut at award shows captioned, "Walking into court like." For many fans, the case was not just about Cardi but about defending women's dignity in male-dominated spaces. A young fan interviewed outside the courthouse put it simply, "She fought back so we don't have to be scared to. That's power." Celebrity reactions. Other celebrities weighed in. Rihanna posted a congratulatory message on Instagram, "Proud of you sis. You showed strength beyond the music." Actress Viola Davis tweeted, "Accountability matters, no matter who you are." Even politicians joined the chorus. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez praised the verdict as a reminder that respect for women in public spaces is non-negotiable. Not everyone was supportive. Conservative commentator Candace Owens criticized the award as financially devastating overreach, claiming it represented the weaponization of fame against the working class. Her comments sparked heated debates on talk radio and Fox News, where pundits framed the case as emblematic of America's celebrity justice system. Legal analysts take. Legal experts largely applauded the decision. Professor Daniel Kim of UCLA School of Law noted, "Punitive damages at this scale are rare but not unprecedented. What makes this case unique is the context, nightlife security. This verdict sends shockwaves through an industry that often operates in legal gray zones." Others warned the case could lead to unintended consequences. "We may see security firms raising their prices, insisting on broader liability insurance, or refusing to staff high-profile events altogether," said attorney Marissa Chu, who specializes in hospitality law. "The ripple effects will be significant." Broader implications. Beyond the courtroom, the verdict carried meaning far beyond the immediate parties. It touched on three broader themes: celebrity vulnerability, women's safety, and the power dynamics of nightlife. Celebrity vulnerability. For years, celebrities have existed in a paradox. Adored by millions but physically vulnerable in public spaces. While bodyguards and entourages provide some buffer, the presence of security personnel employed by venues introduces a volatile dynamic. Cardi B's case highlighted what happens when those tasked with safety become the source of harm. Celebrities are human beings first, noted cultural critic Jamal Torres. The case exposed how quickly they can be stripped of dignity, even by the very people meant to protect order. Women's safety in nightlife. Advocates for women's rights hailed the verdict as a watershed moment. Nightclubs have long been criticized as unsafe environments for women, with incidents of harassment, assault, and negligence too often swept under the rug. By awarding such significant damages, the jury effectively broadcast that excuses of crowded atmosphere or chaotic environment would no longer suffice. Grassroots organizations began pushing for new legislation requiring stricter training for security staff in nightlife venues. In New York, lawmakers introduced the Safe Nights Act, mandating courses on de-escalation, consent, and gender sensitivity for bouncers and guards. Cardi's case put this issue on the map, one activist said. Now we're going to fight to make every club safer. Security industry accountability. The case also forced a reckoning within the security industry. Insurance brokers reported a surge in inquiries from nightclubs seeking coverage for liability claims. Security companies faced pressure to overhaul hiring practices, conduct background checks, and adopt stricter oversight. One industry insider summed it up bluntly: after this verdict, no club can afford a Dylan on their payroll. Cardi B's personal victory. For Cardi, the verdict was more than a line in a legal ledger. It was closure. In an exclusive post-trial interview with Rolling Stone, she reflected on the toll the case had taken. There were nights I couldn't sleep, thinking about that shove, that look on his face, like I didn't matter. It made me question myself. But I knew if I didn't stand up, it would happen again, to me, to someone else. That's why I fought. She also addressed criticism that the verdict was excessive. It's not about ruining someone. It's about changing the system. If people in power know there are consequences, they'll think twice. Offset, her husband, praised her resilience. She could have settled, walked away, but she stood her ground. That's who she is. That's why we love her. Conclusion: a cultural reckoning. As the dust settled, the Cardi B vs. Dylan case stood as a cultural milestone. It wasn't just another celebrity lawsuit. It was a statement about power, respect, and the right to feel safe in spaces where too often safety is compromised. For fans, it reaffirmed Cardi's image as a fighter who never backs down. For critics, it sparked debates about celebrity privilege and fairness in the justice system. For the nightlife industry, it was a wake-up call. The era of unaccountable bouncers and unchecked aggression was over. In the weeks following the verdict, memes faded, pundits moved on, and new scandals captured headlines. But for those who watched the trial unfold, the memory lingered. A woman in a white suit, standing on courthouse steps, declaring victory not just for herself but for countless others. And in that moment, Cardi B reminded the world that her most powerful verses are not only in her music, but in the fight for her dignity.